Chapter 611. Arissa recalled how Benjamin kept coming in and out that morning when she sent Mary for the checkup. Finally, she realized, Regan was at the hospital since then. She stared at Benjamin, feeling touched. Don't feel moved. Benjamin tapped on her forehead. Go up and see Grandaunt. Arissa glanced at him with a smile. Thank you. Okay. Benjamin tugged her toward the inpatient wing. He didn't forget to look over his shoulder at the kids. Keep up. The kids looked up at him with satisfaction, happy with his earlier performance, so they obediently dashed to keep up with him. Arissa looked over her shoulder to check on the kids. Sweethearts, come to the front. A grin broke across all her 6 kids' faces as they hurriedly raced to the front. I wonder if great-grandaunt has eaten yet. I'm sure she misses us. Arissa's eyes brightened as she looked at them. Slow down. Careful not to trip. Her gaze was trained firmly on the kids. Benjamin cast a glance at her. You have to watch where you're going to. Arissa shot him a side eye. This is a flat surface. I won't trip even if I don't look. Her towering confidence crumbled in the next second. She nearly slipped. She urgently grabbed Benjamin's arm to break her fall. His eyes sharpened with amusement and a flash of anger at her blind confidence. The floor was slightly wet. Arissa was speechless by that fact. Why is the floor wet? She regained her balance and stood up straight. With a glance at the kids, she exhaled a sigh of relief that they didn't walk over the puddle. They might have slipped otherwise. I told you to watch where you're going. Benjamin's handsome face had turned stony. Feeling guilty, Arissa shut her mouth embarrassingly. I thought he didn't mean it. Benjamin gestured to Ethan. Clean this up. Yes, Mr. Graham. Ethan immediately went looking for the janitor. Luckily, Miss York didn't fall. The kids dashed back worriedly when they caught their mom almost slipping and falling. Sweethearts, don't come over here. Be careful. Arissa stopped them urgently. Go wait by the elevator. Why are all of you back here? Benjamin rebuked the kids with a displeased frown. Mommy, did you fall earlier? Gavin looked at her with concern. No, I'm fine. Just strained my thigh a little. Arissa flashed Gavin a reassuring smile to comfort him. You have scared us. Jessie patted her chest to calm her pounding heart. Tim and the rest were staring at her with concern. Arissa walked over to them and carried them onto the elevator. I'm fine. Mommy, be careful when you're walking, Zachary reminded her with a serious look. Arissa nodded. I will. She led the kids and stood at the side to let Benjamin enter. The elevator doors were about to close when Kingsley and Sean blocked the door and squeezed in. Don't forget about us. Benjamin shot them a glance and stood beside Arissa. He swung his gaze to Tim. Tim, close the doors. Okay. Tim obediently complied and went up to the control panel to shut the doors. After contemplating briefly, he also pushed the button for their level of destination. Good job. Kingsley patted Tim's head adoringly. You learned so fast, Tim. Sean complimented Tim too. Tim's tan skin hid his blush, but everyone could see he was shy about the compliments. Arissa was watching Tim with a kind look. Tim is a smart boy. What do you guys think? She was proud of Tim. Tim's studies were impacted by being stuck in a rural town, but he's not dumb. Kingsley chuckled and started his flattery. I didn't assume anything. I knew Tim was smart all along, just like you and Boss. As your child, he must have inherited your genes, so there's no way he'll be worse than the rest. Arissa smiled. A glint of admiration flashed across Kingsley's eyes. Arissa looks so pretty when she smiles. Benjamin caught the admiration in Kingsley's stare and narrowed his eyes at Kingsley to throw him a silent warning. Sensing the unpleasant gaze from Benjamin, Kingsley felt chills snaking up his spine and returned an awkward smile. Mrs. Graham is pretty. Chapter 612. Benjamin's gaze sharpened more with anger. Kingsley calmly averted his gaze. I didn't mean anything by it. Everyone likes looking at pretty things and people. Benjamin is just overreacting. Sean's gaze was darting between both the men with amusement, then paused on Arissa's face briefly. Mrs. Graham does look pretty. Arissa was speechless at his compliment, knowing his intention, but still replied, thank you. The creases on Benjamin's forehead deepened as he shot both of them a warning glance. He suppressed his displeasure by pressing his lips into a line. All the kids looked up at Arissa with wide smiles. Mommy is the prettiest angel. Jasper was a sweet talker. There was a spark in Oliver's eyes too. Mommy got a lot of looks from passers-by when she walked on the street. All the foreigners were staring at her. Benjamin's face darkened another shade at Oliver's admission. He shot a glare at the smile on Arissa's face. Yeah, a lot of men like Mommy, Jesse concluded proudly. Benjamin's face was already as black as a kettle. Kingsley and Sean both caught the change in Benjamin's expression and were amused by it. Gavin and Tim glanced at Benjamin instinctively. When they realized he was jealous, they laughed silently. You'll regret it if you don't hurry up and make Mommy your wife soon. Gavin eyed Benjamin with gloat. Feeling an intense pressure looming over her, Arissa peeked at the man beside her. After Sean, Kingsley, and the kids got out of the elevator, Benjamin wrapped his arm around her waist and whispered into her ear, "You have so many admirers." Hearing the jealousy in his tone, a gleam of delight flashed across Arissa's eyes. "Why, do you care?" Benjamin narrowed his eyes at her. Arissa blinked her eyes innocently and plastered an embarrassed smile. "You're acting like you're jealous." Benjamin scoffed. "I didn't notice that you have so many admirers." The corner of Arissa's lips twitched. "I'm not ugly. Maybe only good-looking people with faces like yours deserve admiration from others." Benjamin frowned at her response. Ignoring him, she released herself from his grip and strode over to the kids to accompany Mary. Benjamin slid both of his hands into his pockets as he continued to fix his gaze on the slender figure up ahead. "Well, I care more about her every day." In a small suburban area in North Stream, Finley saw Regan had returned and hurriedly went up to him. "Have you reported it to the police?" Her question reminded Regan, but he was hesitant when the thought of Benjamin flashed across his mind. "Mom, what exactly happened then? Tell me everything. I was shopping for clothes with your aunt when I bumped into that BCH. Your aunt thought she was there to celebrate your uncle's birthday. I thought she wouldn't be buying any clothes, so I asked her to give us some money to buy them. She just ignored us and went ahead to buy 2 sets of outfits. We thought she bought them for us, so your aunt took them from her, but she snatched them back and humiliated us in public. She even had a man beat us up." Finley was so furious that she was breathing heavily. Regan's expression darkened as he helped Finley sit on the couch. "Mom, calm down. Tell me what the man looks like." Finley covered her face and yelped in pain briefly before answering, "That man must be a hooligan that BCH found from the streets. He had a few subordinates in black suits. After hitting me himself, he even asked his subordinates to beat me." "Oh, Regan, we have to call the police and catch all of them. I can't take this lying down. I don't believe that little BCH can get away with it this time." A malicious gleam shone in Finley's eyes. "Mom, tell me what the man looks like." Regan wanted to be sure if the man Finley was referring to was the one he saw. With a deep set of frowns, Finley said, "He was tall and muscular, seemed to be close with that little B***ch. His gaze was frightening. With one glimpse at him, I knew he was nothing good." Regan was certain that the man who beat Finley was the man he saw. Even Kingsley calls that man boss. That guy isn't just an average Joe, but I'm not sure who he is. After all, I can't even step foot in Delmore's high society. Chapter 613. Mom, I suspect that man isn't just an average Joe. Don't piss him off when you meet him next time, Regan reminded. Finley didn't care much about that. What is there to be scared about him? We call the police, and they'll do their job. They are the ones at fault for getting physical first. Regan felt his head hurt. Mom, I'm going to tell you the truth. I saw Issa at the hospital earlier and the man you said. The man seemed close to Kingsley and wasn't someone we can afford to cross. Regan was well aware of his social status and knew he couldn't afford to offend someone with higher social standing. Everyone had their own circle and his circle couldn't even compare to Kingsley's. Shock filled Finley's eyes. You saw her earlier. Did you teach her a lesson for me? How dare she hit me? Regan admonished. Mom, that is not the point. Issa is not that girl from a few years back. The people she knows are more powerful than the people I know. I can't afford to offend them. That Kingsley is the son of the Watts family from Delmore. Do you know that? The people she knows are from Mr. Watts' circle. If you want to destroy my life, then go ahead and piss them off. Finley was startled at his burst of temper. After a while, she finally processed what he said and started crying in frustration. I was the one wronged. Yet, you're scolding me. Why don't you condemn that BCH? Are you planning to let this matter slide just like that? Did I get beaten for nothing? Regan watched his crying mother and felt his head throbbing. What else can we do then? Ask them to compensate us or apologize. Even if they beat you to death, they have a way to avoid shouldering the responsibility. Finley was shocked by his words. What should we do then? Next time you see Issa, don't cuss her out. Whatever it is, she's still my daughter and your granddaughter. It's not good for us if others heard about this, Regan advised his mother. Finley scoffed with contempt. Cuss at her. Look at me now. Do you even see how badly I was beaten by her? And yet you're asking me to treat her well. Why don't you ask her to respect me as her elder? You shouldn't have married her mother. Regan frowned. Do you think you get to live a good life if I don't marry her? Finley was struck speechless at his refute. The people Issa knows are the ones I can't approach. If we treat her well, she might acquaint us with them. She'll know many others in Mr. Watts' circle if she is well acquainted with him. The company will get to develop on a greater scale. Don't you want the upper society to call you Madam Finley with respect? Regan continued to persuade Finley, feeding into the wild imagination in her mind as though she was already living life as a part of the upper society and had everyone knocking on her door to fawn at her. She had stopped yelping in pain, and her eyes glowed with greed. Will that really happen? That depends on our attitude toward Issa. I saw they were close to her. Mom, I won't force you if you can't do it, but don't offend her. It was true we treated her poorly in the past. Once I apologize to her, I'm sure she'll forgive us. Finley berated, we treated her poorly. Did we starve her? Or did we not give her anything to wear? We were the ones who provided the money for her education. Oh, does scolding her equate to us treating her poorly? Which kid has never hit or scolded before? From my point of view, she didn't get hit or scolded enough. That was why she ended up as an ingrate and came back to beat her elders. Regan didn't want to continue the conversation with his mother. Mom, Arissa said she was drugged. Do you know what happened? With creases marring his forehead, he eyed Finley suspiciously. She and Heather were the ones responsible for getting Issa there, so I wasn't sure if they drugged her then. Finley averted her gaze and barked. I don't know who drugged her. Why do you believe everything she said? Do you think I'm that kind of person? Chapter 614. How could you wrong me? I have never done it. Finley was coughing fervently as though she was about to cough her lungs out. Mom, don't be agitated. I'm just asking. Regan peered at Finley and stopped asking when she began coughing from anger. He immediately patted her back to calm her breathing, thereby missing the guilt in her eyes. Meanwhile, Arissa sneezed a couple of times in the hospital. Did you catch a cold, Issa? Mary looked at her with concern. Arissa rubbed her nose and shook her head with a comforting smile. No, maybe someone is scolding me. Mary chuckled. Our Issa is such a great person. Who will scold you? They're probably just thinking of you. Arissa laughed at her comment. There are many who will cuss at me. The whole York family is enough to make a line around the block. Issa, jokes aside, you have to take care of yourself and not catch a cold. It's cold, so take some medicine as prevention. The air conditioner in the room was on full blast, not for the patient but for the equipment. They required a cold setting to operate well. Okay, Arissa nodded. Grandaunt, are you cold? I'm not cold anymore. Mary shook her head at Arissa and gestured at the blanket covering her. Tim had run out of the room in search of Sean to get some cold medication. Gavin and Zachary both noticed his leaving but had no idea where and why he left, so they secretly followed him. Mr. Bailey, Tim soon arrived at Sean's office. What's wrong, Tim? Sean's expression turned dire, thinking something bad had happened to Mary. Did something happen to Madam Mary? Tim shook his head. No, it's Mommy. Tim paused to catch his breath and swallow the lump in his throat. His pause had shocked Sean and Kingsley. What's wrong with your mom? Kingsley asked frantically. I think Miss York has a bit of a cold. Can you prescribe something for her? Tim looked up at Sean with an urgent look. Sean and Kingsley exchanged a glance. Sean bent down to Tim's level and patted his shoulder. Calm down and tell me slowly. What symptoms does your mom have? Tim relayed everything he observed a while ago. Great-grandaunt said Miss York might have a cold. Miss York has sneezed a few times too. Does she have a runny nose? Sean ruffled Tim's head with amusement. He even knows how to care for others. No, she doesn't have a runny nose or cough. Tim thought back at the symptoms when he had a cold and realized Arissa had none of it. Can you prescribe something for her? Just something as a preventive measure. Sean adoringly patted Tim's head. Okay, wait here, I'll go take some medication. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, Tim thanked him politely. You're welcome. Flashing a smile at Tim, Sean whirled around and left his office to go grab some medication. Spotting Gavin and Zachary outside, Sean was about to ask for the reason they were there when the two gestured for him to stay silent. After understanding what was happening, he headed over to the pharmacy with a smile. Gavin and Zachary exchanged a glance before Zachary tugged Gavin to the sides. After they put some distance from Sean's office, Zachary said, Tim is worried about Mommy. Yeah, Gavin agreed happily. Mommy will be so happy if Tim calls her Mommy. Zachary nodded. He will. Tim had only been with us for a few days. He'll call her Mommy once he feels at home. You were the same before, calling Mommy only after you knew her better. Gavin recalled his old self and giggled. I was pretending to be Jasper then, so I called her Mommy pretty quickly. Zachary laughed. Were you shocked then? Yeah, a little, Gavin admitted. The two were immersed in their conversation, so they didn't notice Benjamin coming close. What are you guys hiding here and talking about? Where's your mom? Benjamin glanced at his two sons. Gavin and Zachary looked up at him at the same time. Mommy is with great-grandaunt. I think she caught a cold. Chapter 615. Tim asked, did you go to Mr. Bailey? Zachary nodded. Yes, but we followed you there. Arissa knew what they were up to. She reminded them, you shouldn't have run around in the hospital. Will Regan come back? It will be bad if they run into him. It's best for them not to see each other. Mommy, we just want to see Mr. Bailey. Gavin responded. Arissa nodded in acknowledgement. Right then, Benjamin came in with Sean. Show it to him, Benjamin instructed her. Arissa could barely hide her surprise. Did he head out to summon Sean? Sean shot her an amused look. Arissa, do you have a headache? Arissa shook her head as a flush crept up her cheeks. I sneezed a few times, and that was about it. I don't feel particularly unwell. Despite that, Sean proceeded to take her temperature. The electric thermometer showed that she wasn't having a fever. Sean showed it to Benjamin. She's fine. Benjamin could finally relax. Grinning, Sean left some instructions. Arissa, you should be careful. You don't want to catch a cold, do you? Okay. Arissa nodded obediently. I've just taken the medicine a while ago. Sean shot her an approving nod. Prevention is better than cure. It was Tim who got the prescription from me. Arissa turned to look at Tim, who blinked twice before averting his gaze shyly. She felt a surge of happiness. It's getting late. Let's pack up and leave, Benjamin said. Arissa glanced at the time and bobbed her head. You can leave. I'll stay at the hospital to take care of Madame Mary, Sean said. They should get back to the hotel to get some rest. Thanks, Mr. Bailey. Arissa thanked him gratefully. For the past few days, Sean had worked really hard. He spent all his time in the hospital and didn't really get to rest. It's fine. I can take a nap in the doctor's mess later, Sean assured her. The temperature was dropping, so it would be best for Gavin and the rest to return to the hotel. Arissa bid goodbye to Mary before leading the kids and Benjamin back to the hotel to get some rest. Kingsley and Ethan left with them, too. Back at the hotel, everyone washed up and went to bed. Arissa made sure the kids were asleep before she went to the bathroom to take a shower. When she emerged from the bathroom, Benjamin was sitting on the couch. At once, she halted in her tracks. You should take a shower and go to bed soon, she said. Benjamin whipped his head around and saw Arissa clad in a nightdress that exposed her attractive legs. His gaze promptly turned dark with desire. Arissa had just stepped out of the shower, so she looked soft and inviting. Her cheeks were pink and fluffy. It was an enticing sight. You should sleep in the adjoining room. Hearing that, Arissa was confused. The kids had fallen asleep in this room, and she wouldn't sleep separately with them in a new place. Otherwise, they might wake up at night and cry if she wasn't with them. I'll sleep right here, she said. Having said that, she walked over to the kids and lay down beside them. Ignoring the man's presence, she tucked the kids in and prepared to sleep. Switch off the lights before you leave later, she told Benjamin. With that said, she shut her eyes and fell asleep. As she didn't get to rest all day, her energy was spent. Benjamin's brows snapped together when he heard her breathing turning stable. In the end, he switched off the lights and left the room. Soon, he returned to the room after taking his shower. The room was pitch black. Benjamin could see clearly in the dark, so he strode over to the bed without any difficulty. Standing beside the bed, he glanced at the spot beside Arissa. He then looked at the kids. Bending down, he moved Jessie, who was sleeping beside Arissa, to the other end of the bed. He then shifted Arissa carefully before joining her in bed. It was midnight when a loud thump reverberated around the room. Thump! It sounded like something had landed on the ground. At once, Benjamin jolted awake. Chapter 616. Benjamin's eyes snapped open as he observed his surroundings. His guard was up. However, he didn't discover anything out of the ordinary. He was about to go back to bed when a loud wail pierced the air. Mommy! Arissa woke up instantly and scrambled out of bed. She didn't even realize she had to crawl over Benjamin to leave the bed. She went in the direction of the wails immediately. Sweetheart, don't cry. I'm right here, she coaxed patiently. Afraid she'd stumble, Benjamin switched on the lights hurriedly. Arissa spotted her daughter wailing her heart out on the ground and picked her up. What happened? Hush, sweetheart. Mommy. Jessie burped pitifully and complained. Mommy, I fell off the bed. Stunned, Arissa checked Jessie hastily to find if the latter was injured. Did you injure yourself? Show me, she urged. Jessie shook her head. My butt hurts. She sniffled. Her small face was a mess of tears and snot was bubbling out of her nose. Arissa wiped her tears off and unbuttoned her pajamas to check her body. Is she all right? Benjamin came over to them. Arissa stopped abruptly when she realized he was also there. She glanced at him before turning to look at the bed. Did he just sleep here? Mommy, my butt hurts. Jessie whined as she touched her butt. Let me take a look. Arissa observed the sore spot and massaged it gently. Don't cry. Let me put on some ointment for you. Feeling sorry, Benjamin offered. I'll go see if there is any ointment around. He strode toward the living room to find the ointment. The other 5 kids roused and rubbed their eyes sleepily. Worried, they asked, Mommy, what happened to Jessie? Jess is fine. You should go to bed. She fell off the bed, but she's fine, Arissa assured them. Oliver and Jasper were used to it, so they returned to bed and promptly fell asleep. Zachary also did the same. Jessie often fell off her bed, so this time, it didn't cause a huge ruckus. Both Gavin and Tim gazed at Jessie worriedly, so Arissa explained the situation to them briefly. Sweethearts, you should sleep. Jess is fine. The floor is covered with carpet, so she didn't hurt herself. But Jessie is crying so sadly. Gavin's brows scrunched up in worry. Chuckling, Arissa patted Jess's back and explained, perhaps she got shocked after falling off the bed suddenly. It's fine. Hurry, sleep now. Tim could barely hide his concern for Jessie. Don't cry, Jessie. Arissa brought Jessie over to them and said, Look, sweetheart. Your brothers are worried about you. Jessie sniffed loudly. Tears hung on her lashes, and her nose was red. She looked like a pitiful sight. Gavin, Tim, I'm fine. My butt hurts, though. You should sleep. I'm sorry for waking you up, she said. Both Gavin and Tim shook their heads profusely. We're glad you're fine. Benjamin came in with the ointment. He joined Arissa on the bed and uncapped the ointment. Here, apply some ointment for her. Jessie flung her arms around Arissa tightly. Arissa patted her back to console her. It won't hurt. You'll feel better after applying the ointment. She coaxed Jessie patiently and told Benjamin. Give it to me. I shall apply it on her bottom. Jessie rested her cheek on Arissa's shoulder and allowed her mother to apply the ointment to her bottom. Her cheeks were pink. Gavin and Tim's eyes turned as round as saucers. Carefully, they wiped her tears away. It doesn't hurt anymore, right? Yes. Jessie bobbed her heads and stared at her brothers. Arissa focused her attention on applying the ointment a few times. Benjamin sat aside and noticed that Jess's bottom looked slightly green. His brows furrowed together at the discovery. Apply more ointment and more pressure. Otherwise, the bruise won't go away, he uttered. Arissa paused and shot him an amused look. She pulled Jess's pants up without hesitation. She found his reaction quite funny. Actually, that isn't a bruise. Chapter 617. Confused, Benjamin turned to look at her. It isn't a bruise, but it's bluish-green. Arissa giggled. It's a common occurrence in children. Benjamin's frown deepened. A common occurrence in children. He turned to Gavin. Gavin's bottom doesn't look like that. Hearing that, Gavin flushed shyly. Arissa's lips curved as she put Jessie down. She told the kids to go to bed before she gave Benjamin an explanation. Not every kid has that. When they grow up, the lesion will disappear. It isn't a bruise, she revealed. Benjamin had no idea about that. Arissa glanced at him. It's perfectly normal. Tim shot them a look and whispered, I have it, too. Is that so? Arissa asked him cheerfully. Tim gave a tiny nod. He scurried back to bed and pulled the blanket over his head to cover his face. Arissa smiled. My son is so cute when he's embarrassed. Zachary has it, too. She sat beside Tim and patted his head before pulling the covers up for Gavin and Jessie. Sleep tight. Okay. Jessie shut her eyes obediently. Gavin yawned and got up. Mommy, I need to pee. All right. She picked him up and helped him with his shoes. Turning at her shoulder, she asked, Tim, do you want to pee before going back to sleep? Tim stole a glance at her. Seeing that, Arissa carried him up and helped him with his shoes. Go pee with Gavin. Tim ran away. Arissa then met Benjamin's gaze. Why did Jessie fall off the bed on the other side? She remembered sleeping beside Jessie, but the little girl ended up falling off at the other end of the bed. A flash of embarrassment appeared on Benjamin's face. I moved her there. Stunned, Arissa glanced at the bed before comprehension dawned. Did you sleep here earlier? Benjamin shot her a look. Can't I sleep here? He declared. Arissa's lips twitched, but she said nothing else. He moved Jessie away so he could sleep next to me. Her heart began to race. Does Benjamin want to get closer to me? Or was he merely trying to take advantage over me? As she stared at him strangely, Benjamin felt embarrassed. He went to the other side and climbed into bed. Sleep. Arissa was rendered speechless. Why do you have to say that word so loudly? Fortunately, the kids didn't rouse. Shortly after, Gavin and Tim emerged from the bathroom. She tucked them into bed and said, Sweethearts, good night. Mommy, come and join us in bed. Gavin urged. Chuckling, Arissa made sure they were comfortable in the bed. I need to go to the bathroom, too. Don't wait for me. Okay. Both boys closed their eyes quietly. Arissa went to the bathroom and washed her hands hastily. When she came out, she switched off the lights. You switched the lights off before you get into bed. Can you see in the dark? As she was stumbling in the dark, Benjamin switched on the bedside lamp. Arissa was startled by his action. There is a remote control here. Don't you know it exists? Benjamin only switched off the lights when she snuggled into bed. I forgot about it. All right. Arissa rolled her eyes inwardly. She was too sleepy to argue with him. Pulling the covers up, she lay beside the kids. Soon, she drifted off to sleep. Benjamin heard them snoring, but he couldn't go to sleep. He lay on his side. As the moonlight shone through the windows, he glanced at Arissa and the kids in bed. A smile nudged his lips. They are sleeping soundly. They wouldn't know if someone moved them out of the bed. Arissa rolled over and nearly tumbled off the bed. At that sight, Benjamin felt his heart sink to his stomach. Arissa then inched to the middle of the bed. Feeling disturbed, the kids mumbled in their sleep and inched toward Benjamin. The second time Benjamin noticed she nearly fell off the bed, he got up and went to her. He lay behind her and placed his arm around her waist naturally to pull her into his arms. Her familiar fragrance entered Benjamin's nostrils, and it gave him a calming effect. Not long after, he fell asleep, too. Chapter 618. The next day, Arissa woke up to a warm body behind her. Her entire being froze. She whipped her head around to see a handsome face right behind her. Benjamin seemed more approachable in his sleep, so she couldn't help but observe him carefully. Didn't he sleep on the other side last night? She snuggled into his embrace, enjoying the feeling of his strong arms supporting her. The man's hot breath fanned her cheeks, bringing about a ticklish sensation. Arissa felt her heart skip a beat. As Benjamin's lashes moved, she promptly shut her eyes. Her heartbeat quickened when she sensed the man's gaze landing on her. Benjamin had just roused to the sight of Arissa lying in his arms quietly. His heart was full. Something gleamed in his eyes as he realized her lashes were twitching. His lips curled into a mischievous grin. Suddenly, Benjamin thought of teasing her. He tightened his arms and rested his chin on her shoulder. Arissa couldn't help but cower when his hot breath puffed against her neck. "It's ticklish," she grumbled softly. Benjamin let out a low chuckle as Arissa's cheeks turned pink. Benjamin nuzzled her neck and took in her alluring, sweet scent. Taking a deep breath, he couldn't help but give her a few pecks. Arissa's entire being trembled profusely as her cheeks heated up. In a low voice, she chided, "What are you doing? Release me, the kids are right beside us." She tried struggling out of his reach. However, she didn't dare move too much for fear of waking the kids. However, her struggles seemed like an invitation to Benjamin. His gaze turned dark with desire as he pressed his lips onto her nape. Arissa shuddered and gave him a forceful kick. Thump! The man tumbled off the bed. Arissa was shocked by the loud voice. The children promptly jolted awake. They sat up to find out what had happened. At the sight of Benjamin's grim expression, they gaped at him. Benjamin glared at the woman who hid under the covers. "How dare she kick me off the bed?" Sensing his imposing presence, Arissa felt a chill go down her spine. "I didn't do that on purpose. It was an instinctive reaction. He was the one who took advantage of me." "Daddy, why are you on the ground? Did you fall off the bed?" Gavin asked on purpose. Inwardly, he was laughing in delight. "I can't believe Daddy fell off the bed. Mr. Graham, why did you fall off the bed just like Jesse?" Zachary grinned. Both Oliver and Jasper giggled aside. Benjamin's expression turned dark. Jessie took one look at Benjamin and touched her head. "I fell off that side last night, and Mr. Graham fell off this side in the morning." "Mr. Graham, did you sleep with us?" The kids cast him suspicious looks. Benjamin's throat went dry as he stood up. He glanced at the woman hiding under the covers and told the kids, "Hurry, go wash up." The children shared a look and didn't say a word, for he looked especially grumpy this morning. They toddled to the bathroom as ordered. Benjamin fixed his gaze on the woman. "Get up." Arissa shuddered. "Is he going to beat me up?" Benjamin's brows snapped together. Isn't she afraid of suffocating under the covers? As she didn't move an inch, he reached out and pulled the covers away. Without warning, Arissa met his sharp gaze. She blinked before offering an apology. "Graham, I didn't do that on purpose. You did that suddenly, so I reacted subconsciously to defend myself," she explained. Benjamin harumphed. "If you did it on purpose, I would have been injured." Arissa had no words to reply. "I'm not as good as him at fighting. Even if I did it on purpose, I wouldn't be able to injure him. The floor is covered with carpet. Did you injure yourself?" she asked. Despite rejoicing inwardly, she pretended as though she was worried about him. "Should I help you to apply some ointment?" Benjamin glowered at her cheeky smile. He knew she was merely putting up an act, but the anger in his heart faded away. Chapter 619. Sensing his stare, Arissa looked away calmly and avoided meeting his gaze. Benjamin took note of her guilty look. "Get up and wash up now." Arissa wanted to laze around. "If Madame Mary is doing well this morning, we can prepare to head back to Delmore," Benjamin told her. Arissa's eyes lit up at his words. She promptly sat up. We're going back to Delmore. As she seemed eager to head back, Benjamin gave her a firm nod. We've wasted enough time here. With that said, Benjamin spun on his heels and strode out of the room. Arissa watched his departing figure silently. She was already busy planning how to send the kids to school. Scrambling out of bed, she ran to the bathroom. Sweethearts, hurry. We need to pack our stuff as we're going to head back to Delmore today. Gavin and the other four were excited, but Tim was slightly nervous. Mommy, didn't Mr. Graham say we'll head back after confirming Madam Mary is okay? Oliver reminded. Madam Mary will be fine. She looked fine yesterday, Jasper replied cheerfully. Yes. Arissa flashed a grin and nodded. She patted the kid's head affectionately. Madam Mary can follow us back to Delmore today. She glanced at the kids and realized Tim had lowered his head. Her heart sank as she squatted before him. She held Tim's shoulders and asked, Sweetheart, let's go back to Delmore together, all right? Tim glanced at her. Are we bringing Madam Mary there so she can get treated there? Arissa ruffled his hair. Yes, we're bringing Madam Mary to Delmore so she can get treated there. Healthcare is more advanced there. You can go to school with Gavin and the rest. Tim gripped his clothes. He was feeling nervous and uneasy about going to a foreign environment. He also felt reluctant to leave this place. Arissa knew how conflicted his feelings were. She flung his arms around him and said, Sweetheart, no matter where you go, Rudisii Village will always be your home. When you wish to come back, I'll bring you back during the holidays to meet your friends. For the rest of the time, we'll live in Delmore. Is that all right? Worried that he would be reluctant to leave, Arissa did her best to coax him. Tim took one look at her. Arissa explained patiently, if you follow Daddy and Mommy back, Madam Mary will also live with us. You don't have to leave Madam Mary, for you'll be with her at all times. You'll be living in a different place, that's all. Tim, come back home with us. That way, Mommy and Daddy won't have to worry about you here. Don't you want Madam Mary to get treated by a better doctor? Gavin chimed in. I do, Tim answered firmly. If you feel reluctant to leave, we can ask Mommy to bring us back here during the holidays, Zachary told Tim gleefully. We have a house in Rudisii Village, remember? Tim gazed at his brothers and bobbed his head. He didn't want to leave Mary. If he were to stay here alone, his family and Mary would definitely worry about him. Arissa flashed a relieved smile. She stroked his head adoringly and pressed a delighted kiss to his cheek. Sweetheart, relax. Everyone will be by your side in Delmore, including your daddy and brothers, she assured him. Don't forget about Grandpa, Gavin interjected. Grandpa will be thrilled to see Tim. Tim turned to look at Gavin. Grandpa, yes, he's Daddy's dad. He wants to come and see you, but Daddy stopped him from coming. Grandpa must be upset. He won't be upset when he sees you, Tim, Gavin explained. Yes, Grandpa will be thrilled to see you, Tim. His house is full of yummy food. Jesse enthused. Tim's eyes lit up. Does Grandpa like me, too? Let's give Grandpa a call in secret. Zachary blinked twice before asking, Tim, would you like to meet Grandpa now? Daddy might have blocked Grandpa's phone, but there is another way for us to contact him. Chapter 620. As Tim seemed nervous, Arissa chuckled and reminded the kids, there's no rush. We're going back today, so we can give Grandpa a surprise. Zachary and the rest nodded profusely. Arissa wetted a face towel and wiped the kids' faces. Has everyone gone to the toilet? She asked. The kids giggled in chorus, so she knew they hadn't relieved themselves. She grinned and turned to leave. I shall head out now. Hurry up. She prepared the kids' clothes and spread them on the bed. When the kids came out, she said, I've placed your clothes on the bed. Get changed yourselves. Got it, Mommy. You should go wash up, Zachary urged. He brought his siblings over to the bed so they could get changed. Arissa went to the bathroom to wash up and relieve herself. Benjamin washed up and changed his clothes. He came out to see the kids busy changing their clothes. Glancing in the direction of the bathroom, he asked, Is your mommy still inside? Mommy's inside. Gavin glanced at him and asked, Daddy, are we really going home today? Yeah, came Benjamin's answer. He had just called Sean and confirmed that Mary was doing well today. Delighted, Gavin turned to Tim. Daddy says we can go back today. Tim inclined his head. Benjamin swept his gaze over them before turning to the bathroom. With his hands stuck in his pockets, he said, "Time for breakfast." The kids ran to the bathroom and yelled, "Mommy, it's time for breakfast." "Hurry up, sweethearts, you don't have to wait for me. I need more time," Arissa responded loudly. The kids ran out without waiting for her. Benjamin took one look at the bathroom before leaving with the kids. He took care of the kids when they were having breakfast. The kids' eyes lit up when they saw the scrumptious spread served before them. "Take your seats," Benjamin ordered. He took their cups and poured milk for them. Hearing that, the children climbed into their seats. Jessie plopped into her seat and was about to grab some food when something occurred to her. She retracted her hand and shot Benjamin a look. Noticing her action, Benjamin said, "Eat up." Jessie beamed. "Thank you, Mr. Graham." Benjamin's heart melted when he saw her adorable smile. He ruffled her hair affectionately. After making sure the kids got what they wanted, he took his seat aside. "Mr. Graham, won't you eat?" Tim inquired. "I'm not hungry yet." Benjamin began reading the papers. The kids shared a look. Both Jasper and Oliver giggled among themselves. Jasper whispered, "Mr. Graham is obviously waiting for Mommy." Zachary observed Benjamin and flashed a smile. "Let's eat. We can wait for Mommy while we eat," Gavin reminded them. He didn't forget to get Tim some yummy food. Benjamin lifted his head to glance at the kids every now and then. A gentle smile nudged his lips when he saw them eating their breakfast obediently. The morning sunshine poured through the window, shining on the kids. Benjamin would remember this scene for years to come. He grinned before looking away to focus on the papers. Only the soft voices of the children chewing on their food could be heard. A while later, Benjamin furrowed his brows when he realized Arissa was still in the bathroom. He glanced at his watch and realized she had been inside for more than 10 minutes. What is taking her so long? The children shared his sentiments, too. Jasper sighed. Mommy is really fussy, huh? Oliver nodded and chimed in. We need to wait half an hour for her every morning. Zachary giggled in response. Gavin and Tim stared at their siblings in bafflement. Curious, Gavin asked, why do you have to wait half an hour? Jessie replied cheekily, Mommy's pooing. She takes half an hour to poo. Gavin, Tim, and Benjamin were speechless.